I'm Helena, 33 years old, and until last month, I thought I had the perfect marriage. James and I celebrated 5 wonderful years together, and his family had always welcomed me with open arms. At least that's what I believed. When James mentioned a family reunion in Aspen, I never imagined I would discover the painful truth that would shake the foundation of our marriage. Sometimes the people closest to us hide the most hurtful secrets. Before I share how my perfect marriage started crumbling, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted. I met James at a charity gala 7 years ago. I was there photographing the event, quietly capturing moments from behind my camera lens. He was there as a guest, the handsome son of a wealthy real estate family. Our eyes met across the room while I was adjusting my camera settings. I still remember how he walked straight over, completely ignoring the socialite who had been trying to hold his attention. "That camera looks serious," he said with a charming smile. "Are you capturing evidence or creating art?" "Both," I replied, surprising myself with my boldness. "The best art is always evidence of something true," James laughed, and that was it. We spent the rest of the evening talking in a quiet corner, ignoring the gala happening around us. He asked to see my photography portfolio the next day, which turned into coffee, which turned into dinner. Within 6 months, we were inseparable. Our wedding was everything I'd dreamed of, but never thought I'd have. Growing up in a middle-class family in Boulder, I'd always been the practical one. My parents owned a small hardware store, and we lived comfortably but modestly. My childhood was filled with camping trips instead of luxury vacations, hand-me-downs instead of designer clothes. I learned the value of hard work and authenticity. James came from a completely different world. The Prestons were old money Denver. His father, Thomas, built the family real estate development business into an empire. His mother, Catherine, came from banking royalty. They lived in a mansion in Cherry Hills Village and spent summers in the Hamptons and winters in Aspen. James and his brother Andrew attended the finest private schools before both graduated from Yale. When James proposed after just a year of dating, I was shocked. Not because I didn't love him, but because I couldn't imagine fitting into his world. But James insisted I was exactly what he wanted, someone real in his world of appearances. "You see me," he said when he proposed. "Not my family name or my bank account. Just me." Our wedding was featured in Denver magazine, 300 guests at the Brown Palace Hotel. Catherine. My mother-in-law took charge of most of the planning, which I was grateful for since I was focused on building my photography business. She was always polite if a bit distant, but I assumed that was just her reserved nature. James's father, Thomas, was jovial and warm, and his brother Andrew immediately treated me like a sister. Andrew's girlfriend, Sophia, was especially welcoming. She came from a background similar to James's, but had none of the pretension I sometimes sensed from others in their social circle. We bonded quickly over our shared love of hiking and our position as outsiders in the Preston family orbit. Though she had been dating Andrew for nearly 10 years and moved in the same social circles her entire life. After the wedding, James and I settled into a beautiful townhouse in Denver's Highland neighborhood. James took a position at Preston Development, working directly under his father. I continued building my photography business, specializing in fine art landscapes and occasional high-end portraits. I loved my work, but in Denver's saturated market, success came slowly. James never complained about my modest contribution to our finances, but I felt the imbalance keenly. While he wore bespoke suits to work in the family company's gleaming downtown headquarters, I worked from a small home office, often in yoga pants, struggling to book enough clients to cover my equipment costs. Family dinners at the Preston mansion were a monthly tradition. At first, I looked forward to these gatherings, but over time, I began to notice subtle tensions. Catherine would compliment my dress, then mention how she'd seen something similar at a discount store. Thomas would ask about my business with genuine interest, but Catherine would quickly change the subject to Andrew's latest achievement or James's new project. At holiday gatherings, I noticed I was often seated at the end of the table away from the core family members. In family photos, Catherine would position me at the edge sometimes, even suggesting I take the photo instead. "You're the professional after all," she would say with a thin smile. I mentioned these small slights to James once, but he dismissed my concerns. "That's just Mum," he said. "She's particular about everything. Don't take it personally." So I didn't, or at least I tried not to. I worked harder to fit in to prove my worth. I volunteered to photograph family events for free. I studied wine to be able to contribute to dinner conversations. I even took golf lessons, though I had zero interest in the sport because the Prestons spent so many weekends at their country club. Looking back, I can see I was trying too hard, diminishing myself to fit into a space that wasn't designed for me. But at the time, I just wanted to belong, to be worthy of the family my husband came from. 5 years into our marriage, I thought things were good. Not perfect, perhaps, but good. James and I had our routines, our inside jokes, our comfortable life together. If our passion had cooled somewhat, I told myself that was normal. If we spent more time with his family than mine, that made practical sense given their proximity. If I sometimes felt invisible at Preston gatherings, well, I could live with that. I had no idea how blind I'd been until the day James mentioned the family reunion. It was a Tuesday evening in February when James first mentioned the trip. I was editing photos from a rare corporate booking while he flipped through channels on TV. "By the way," he said casually, "Mum's planning a family reunion in Aspen next month, the second weekend in March. The whole family will be there." I perked up immediately. Despite the occasional awkwardness, I enjoyed our family trips to Aspen. The Prestons owned a stunning vacation home there, and winter weekends were filled with skiing, gourmet meals, and board games by the fire. "That sounds fun," I said, saving my editing work. "Is there a special occasion?" James shrugged his eyes, still on the TV. "Just a reunion. It's been a while since everyone was together." Something in his tone struck me as off, but I brushed the feeling aside, excited about the prospect of a mountain getaway. "I should probably get some shopping done," I said, already mentally inventorying my winter wardrobe. "My ski pants from last season are getting shabby." James nodded absently. "Sure, whatever you need." Over the next week, I found myself unusually excited about the trip. February had been stressful with few photography bookings, and a weekend in the mountains sounded like the perfect escape. I even splurged on a new ski jacket, a purchase I justified as both personal and professional, since I hoped to get some portfolio-worthy mountain shots. Then just 10 days before the scheduled weekend, James dropped a bomb over breakfast. "About Aspen," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "I forgot to mention it's actually a family-only thing. You know, Preston's only." I put down my coffee cup. "What do you mean, Preston's only? I'm a Preston." James shifted uncomfortably. "You know what I mean. Blood family. It's something Mum wants, a tradition she's trying to start. Just siblings, cousins, the core family." I felt a cold weight settling in my stomach. "So spouses aren't invited. Andrew's bringing Sophia, right?" "Well, no, she's not coming either," James said quickly. "Like I said, just blood relatives." It hurt, I won't pretend it didn't, but I tried to understand. Some families had strange traditions, and though being excluded stung, I told myself not to make it about me. "Okay," I said slowly. "It's just one weekend. Maybe I'll plan a girls' trip with Taylor." James looked relieved. "That's a great idea. You two haven't hung out in ages." I might have let the whole thing go, if not for a coincidence 3 days later. I was grabbing coffee at my favourite downtown spot when I ran into Lisa, a casual friend who worked at a high-end boutique. "Helena," she exclaimed. "I just helped your sister-in-law-to-be yesterday. Such exciting news about the engagement." I froze coffee halfway to my lips. I'm sorry, what engagement? Lisa's smile faltered. Oh, Sophia Andrews' fiancé. She was shopping for the perfect outfit for their engagement celebration. She mentioned it was happening in Aspen. I assumed you knew. My mind raced as I forced a smile. Of course. Yes, very exciting. I just didn't realize you knew Sophia. I made a hasty exit, my heart pounding. Sitting in my car, I pulled out my phone and went straight to Sophia's Instagram. She rarely posted, but there it was, from 2 days ago, a close-up of her hand with a massive diamond ring, captioned only with a heart emoji. The location tag read, "Our secret place," with no other details. My hands shaking slightly, I expanded my search. Nothing on Andrew's page, nothing on the family accounts. But then I found it a cousin of James's, Megan, who I'd met only twice, had posted a story about packing for Andrew and Sophia's engagement weekend in Aspen, Preston family celebration. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. This wasn't a family reunion. It was Andrew and Sophia's engagement party, a celebration I was deliberately excluded from. Still hoping for an innocent explanation, I did something I'd never done before. I went into James's email on our shared laptop. It took only seconds to find the invitation sent to his personal account. You're invited to celebrate the engagement of Andrew Preston and Sophia Bennett. Luxury weekend celebration, Preston Lodge, Aspen. I read further, my vision blurring with tears. The itinerary included a welcome dinner, a day of skiing, a formal engagement party, and a farewell brunch. The guest list, helpfully attached, included every Preston relative I'd ever heard of, plus family friends, business associates, and Sophia's entire family. Every spouse was invited, every significant other, every +1, everyone except me. I sat in our living room for hours after my discovery, the printed email in my hand, waiting for James to come home. With each passing minute, my shock transformed into a deep, aching hurt, then into simmering anger. How could he lie to me so blatantly? How could he agree to attend his own brother's engagement celebration without me? What kind of man, what kind of husband would allow his wife to be singled out and excluded this way? When I finally heard his key in the lock, I had moved beyond tears to a cold, clear fury. "Hey, what's for dinner? I'm starving," James called as he walked in, dropping his briefcase by the door as he always did. I didn't answer, simply held up the printed invitation. He froze mid-step, his face cycling rapidly through surprise guilt, and then something like resignation. "You went through my email," he asked, his tone accusatory. "That's what you're concerned about?" I asked incredulously. "Not the fact that you lied to my face about this trip, not the fact that your brother is celebrating his engagement, and somehow I'm the only person in the family not invited." James sighed and loosened his tie. "Look, it's complicated. Uncomplicate it for me," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. He sat heavily on the couch across from me, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. "It wasn't my decision, Helena. Mom organised the whole thing. And what? She specifically said everyone's invited except your wife. And you were just fine with that." James looked away. They thought it would be better this way." "Better for whom?" "For everyone," he snapped, then immediately moderated his tone. "Look, you know how these family events go. Mum always asks you to take photos. You always end up working instead of enjoying yourself. They thought it would be easier if you didn't feel obligated to document everything." I stared at him, speechless. It was such a transparent lie that I almost laughed. "So they're excluding me, for my benefit, out of concern for my enjoyment of an event I'm not invited to." My voice dripped with sarcasm. James shifted uncomfortably. "That's not exactly it. It's just, you and Mum have never really clicked, and this is a big deal for Andrew. They wanted everything to be perfect. And I'm what James, the imperfection they needed to eliminate." "Don't twist my words," he said defensively. It's just a weekend. It's not worth causing a huge family drama over. A family drama, I repeated, my voice rising. Your mother deliberately excluded your wife from a major family event. You lied to cover it up, and I'm the one causing drama by being upset about it. James stood up and began pacing, a sure sign he was getting agitated. You're blowing this out of proportion. It's just one event. It's not just one event, I cried. It's a pattern. Your mother has been excluding me, minimizing me, treating me like an accessory rather than family for years. And you've let her do it. You've enabled it. And now you're actively participating in it. That's not fair, James protested. My mother has always been welcoming to you. I laughed, a harsh sound with no humour in it. Welcoming. She introduces me as James's wife, the photographer, like I don't even have a name. She seats me at the far end of the table at every family dinner. She crops me out of family photos, or better yet, has me take them, so I'm not in them at all. And now this. This is beyond unwelcoming James. This is actively hostile. James's face hardened. Maybe, if you made more of an effort to fit in, things would be different. His words hit me like a physical blow. More effort. I have bent myself into pretzels trying to fit into your family. I've changed how I dress, how I speak, what I do for a living. I've provided free photography for every family event for 5 years. I've listened to your mother's thinly veiled criticisms without complaint. What more could I possibly do? James was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke again, his voice was low and cold. My mother has always believed you married me for money and status, for access to the Preston name and connections for your business, and sometimes when you act like this, I wonder if she's right. I felt as if all the air had been sucked from the room. Act like what, James? Like a wife who expects her husband to stand up for her, like a person who deserves basic respect. Like someone who's always keeping score, he shot back, always looking for slights, always the victim. Do you know how exhausting that is? I stood up, shaking. I think you should leave. James looked shocked. This is my house. It's our house, I corrected him, and I need you not to be in it right now. I need to think. For a moment, I thought he might refuse, might escalate the argument further. Instead, he grabbed his keys. Fine, I'll stay at Derek's tonight. Call me when you're ready to be reasonable. The door slammed behind him, leaving me alone in the sudden silence of our home, the home I had thought we were building together. I sank back onto the couch, the full weight of what had just happened pressing down on me. My husband hadn't just failed to stand up for me. He had actively participated in my exclusion and then blamed me for being hurt by it. Worse, he had revealed what his family really thought of me, what perhaps he thought of me too, that I was a gold digger only interested in the Preston name and money. It was so wildly unfair, so completely backwards from reality that I couldn't even process it. I had never cared about James's money. I had loved him for his kindness, his humour, the way he seemed to see and appreciate me when we first met. I had married him believing we were equals partners, a team. Now I had to face the possibility that he had never seen me that way at all. After James left, the house felt too quiet, too empty, yet somehow suffocating. I called the one person who had known me since before the Prestons, before I became James's wife, instead of just Helena. Taylor picked up on the second ring. Hey, stranger, I was just thinking about you. The moment I heard her familiar voice, the tears I'd been holding back broke free. Taylor, everything's falling apart. I'm coming over, she said immediately. Wine or whiskey? Both, I managed through tears. 45 minutes later, we sat on my living room floor, backs against the couch, a bottle of each between us. I'd spilled the whole story, the fake family reunion, the real engagement party, James's betrayal, and the devastating revelation about what his family really thought of me. Taylor listened without interruption, her expression growing stormier by the minute. When I finally finished, she took a long sip of her whiskey. What a bunch of pretentious, elitist arseholes, she said flatly. Despite everything, I laughed, a watery, hiccuping sound. It felt good to hear someone else say what I'd never allowed myself to think. The worst part, I said, refilling my glass, is that I've spent 5 years trying to be good enough for them. I've been so careful, so accommodating, walking on eggshells, making myself smaller. And none of it mattered. They were never going to accept me. Taylor took my hand. Helena, listen to me. You have never been the problem. You're talented, kind, genuine. All the things the Prestons pretend to be but aren't. They're the ones who aren't good enough for you. I shook my head. Then why doesn't James see that? Why doesn't he stand up for me? Because he's one of them, Taylor said gently. He might love you in his way, but when push comes to shove, he's a Preston first. Her words hurt, but I couldn't deny their truth. Every time there had been a conflict between what I needed and what his family wanted, James had chosen his family. I'd just never seen the pattern so clearly before. So what do I do now? I asked, feeling lost. Taylor topped off our glasses. First, you stop crying over people who don't value you. Second, you take back your power. How exactly do I do that? A slow smile spread across Taylor's face. Well, they're all going to be living it up in Aspen next weekend, right? Why should you sit home feeling sorry for yourself? Let's plan a trip of our own. I blinked. Like what? Where would we go? Anywhere, everywhere, Vegas, Santa Fe, San Diego. Or hell, why not another ski resort? Breckenridge is just as nice as Aspen, with fewer trust fund babies on the slopes. The idea took hold in my mind, growing from a tiny spark to a flame. Why shouldn't I enjoy myself that weekend? Why should I give James and his family the satisfaction of picturing me at home, miserable and alone? Breckenridge, I said decisively. I've always wanted to ski there, and James always insisted on Aspen because that's where the family has property. Taylor grinned and raised her glass. Breckenridge it is. We'll have so much fun. They'll be sick with jealousy. I clinked my glass against hers, feeling something like hope for the first time in days. The next morning, nursing a mild hangover, I booked a room at a lodge in Breckenridge for the same weekend as the engagement party. Taylor had planned to join me, but by a stroke of bad luck, she was called for a work conference the same weekend that she couldn't miss. Go anyway, she insisted when I called to tell her. Don't let them win by changing your plans. Go ski, take amazing photos, meet hot ski instructors, live your best life out of spite, if nothing else. So that was the plan. By the time James came home the next day, I had a full itinerary for my solo weekend getaway. He walked in cautiously, clearly expecting the argument to continue where we'd left off. Instead, I was calm, even pleasant. I've been thinking about what you said, I told him, and you're right. It's just one weekend. It's not worth fighting over. Relief washed over his face. I'm glad you see it that way. I hate fighting with you. Me too, I said, and that much was true. So I've decided to plan my own little getaway that weekend. I'm going to Breckenridge. James's relief vanished. What? By yourself? Yes, by myself. I'll ski, take some photos for my portfolio, relax. It'll be good for me to have some independent adventure. But what will I tell my family? He asked, looking genuinely distressed. I shrugged. Tell them whatever you want. Tell them the truth. Tell them I had other plans. It doesn't really matter, does it? Helena, be reasonable, James said, his voice taking on that condescending tone I'd grown to hate. How will it look if I show up to Andrew's engagement without my wife, and then everyone finds out you're at another ski resort just to make a point? I'm not doing it to make a point, I lied smoothly. I'm doing it because I want to go skiing, and since I'm not welcome at the family event, I made alternative plans. You're the one who said it's just one weekend not worth causing drama over, so let's not cause drama. You go to Aspen, I'll go to Breckenridge, and we'll both have a nice time. James looked at me like he didn't recognize me. Maybe he didn't. Maybe I was finally allowing myself to be the person I'd suppressed for the past 5 years. "This is childish," he said finally. "I expected better from you." I smiled a real smile that felt foreign on my face. "That's funny. I expected better from you too." The drive to Breckenridge on Friday morning was both terrifying and exhilarating. I couldn't remember the last time I'd done something completely on my own, without considering James's preferences or his family's expectations. As the Denver skyline faded in my rearview mirror and the mountains grew larger ahead, I felt a weight lifting. I turned up the radio, singing along to songs I hadn't heard in years, because James controlled the playlist in our house, in our car, in our life. My lodging was a charming inn right at the base of the mountain. Nothing like the Prestons' palatial Aspen home, but cozy and welcoming in a way that luxury sometimes isn't. The young woman at the front desk, Amber, checked me in with genuine warmth. "Solo trip?" she asked, as she handed me my key. I nodded, waiting for the judgment or pity that often came when people learned I was alone. Instead, she grinned. "Good for you. Some of my best days on the mountain have been solo days. No waiting for anyone, no compromising on which runs to take, just you and the snow." Her enthusiasm was infectious, and I found myself smiling back. "I've never skied alone before." "You're going to love it," she assured me. "And hey, we do a happy hour for guests every day at 4. Great way to meet people if you decide you want company." My room was small but perfect, with a view of the slopes and a fireplace that came to life with the flick of a switch. I unpacked quickly, eager to get some late afternoon skiing in before dark. At the rental shop, I waited behind a group of rowdy college kids, feeling suddenly self-conscious. What was I doing here, a 33-year-old woman alone at a ski resort full of groups and couples and families? "First time at Breck?" asked a voice beside me. I turned to see a man about my age, maybe a bit older, with sun-weathered skin and kind eyes. "Is it that obvious?" I asked. He laughed. "Only because you look a little overwhelmed. It can be a lot to take in. I'm Marcus, by the way. I teach lessons here." "Helena," I replied. "And yes, first time here. I usually ski at Aspen." "Ah, crossing enemy lines," he joked. "Well, welcome to the People's Mountain. Less champagne, more beer, but the snow's just as good." We chatted easily while waiting, and when Marcus learned I was alone, he offered to show me some of his favourite intermediate runs if I was interested. My first instinct was to refuse. James would consider it inappropriate talking to a strange man skiing with him, but James wasn't here. James was in Aspen, pretending I didn't exist. "I'd like that," I said. "Thank you." The afternoon passed in a blur of exhilaration. Marcus was an excellent guide patient without being condescending, challenging me just enough to make it exciting. We took run after run as the sun began its descent behind the mountains, painting the snow in shades of gold and pink. "Last one," Marcus called as we boarded the lift for what must have been our 10th run together. The light's getting tricky. At the summit we paused to catch our breath. The view was spectacular, the surrounding peaks bathed in alpine glow, the valley below already shadowed. "This is my favourite time on the mountain," Marcus said quietly. "Most people are already heading in for dinner or drinks, but this light, this quiet, this is what I live for." I understood exactly what he meant. Taking my phone from my pocket, I captured the scene, wishing I had my professional camera with me. "Mind if I get a shot of you?" I asked impulsively. "The composition with a person would be better." "Only if you let me get one of you after," he bargained with a smile. I directed him where to stand, the positioning of his skis, the angle of his head. The resulting photo was striking a solitary figure against the vast mountain backdrop caught in the last golden light of day. "Your turn," Marcus said, taking my phone. "Go stand over there and look happy," I laughed. "Just like that, look happy." "Yes," he insisted. "Not posed happy, real happy. Think of something that brings you joy." I moved into position, trying to think of what truly made me happy. My photography, the perfect light on a landscape, the feeling of flying down a mountain, friends who loved me for myself, not what I could do for them. Perfect, Marcus called, snapping several shots. You're a natural. He returned my phone and I scrolled through the images, surprised by what I saw. The woman in the photos didn't look like the careful, accommodating person I'd become in my marriage. She looked alive, vibrant, free. These are great, I said, genuinely pleased. Thank you. Thank you for the company, Marcus replied. Will you be here tomorrow? The snow's supposed to be perfect. All weekend, I confirmed. But I don't want to take up your free time. He grinned. It's not free time. I'm working. Just found myself a private student who needed some guidance on the local terrain. I laughed. Is that what I am? If you want to be, he said simply. No pressure either way. As we skied down the last run in the fading light, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, pure, uncomplicated happiness. No anxiety about measuring up, no careful self-monitoring, no walking on eggshells, just the mountain, the snow, and the simple pleasure of being alive, in my body, moving through the world. Back at the lodge, I joined the happy hour Amber had mentioned. To my surprise, I found myself easily conversing with other guests, a mix of couples, solo travellers, and small groups. No one cared about my last name or my family connections. They wanted to know which runs I'd tried, where I was from, what I did for a living. When I mentioned I was a photographer, they asked genuine questions about my work, not veiled comments about my lack of commercial success. After 2 glasses of wine and more genuine conversation than I'd had in months, I returned to my room feeling lighter than I had in years. On a whim, I opened Instagram and posted one of the photos Marcus had taken of me on the mountain. In it, I was caught in mid-laugh cheeks, flushed snowflakes in my hair, the golden light making everything glow, finding my joy at 10,000 feet. Sometimes the best adventures are the ones you never planned. Hashtag solo travel, #breck life. I captioned it, then hit post before I could overthink it. Then I turned my phone to silent, took a long, hot shower, and fell into bed, too tired to even think about what might be happening in Aspen. I slept deeply for the first time in weeks, waking to brilliant sunshine streaming through my window. The morning brought perfect conditions, fresh powder blue skies, and a renewed sense of purpose. I met Marcus for an early lesson, spent the afternoon exploring the mountain on my own, and even made plans to join a group of solo travellers I'd met at happy hour for dinner. It wasn't until I returned to my room to change that I finally checked my phone and found it exploding with notifications. 15 missed calls, 23 text messages, dozens of Instagram notifications. My heart raced as I scrolled through trying to make sense of the sudden onslaught. Had there been an emergency, an accident? The first message was from James, sent just an hour after I'd posted my photo. What are you doing? Take that down right now. 3 more messages from him followed, each more agitated than the last. Helena, this is childish and embarrassing. Delete that post. Everyone here has seen it. Mum is furious. Call me immediately. I felt a flash of anger. I hadn't tagged anyone, hadn't mentioned the engagement, hadn't done anything except post a photo of myself, enjoying a day of skiing. How dare he demand I take it down? The next messages were even more surprising. Andrew had texted, Helena, what's going on? James told us you didn't want to come this weekend. Are you really at Breckenridge? Sophia. I'm so confused. I thought you declined the invitation. James said you weren't comfortable with big family events right now. I should have checked with you directly. I'm so sorry. Even Catherine, who had never texted me before in 5 years of marriage, had sent a message. Your behaviour is extremely inappropriate and embarrassing to this family. We expected better from you. The Instagram notifications were a mix of likes from my actual friends, confused comments from Preston family members, and even a few supportive messages from Sophia's friends, who seemed to be putting the pieces together. With shaking hands, I called Andrew back first. He answered immediately. Helena, what the hell is going on? Where are you? I'm at Breckenridge, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Skiing, taking some photos. But why aren't you here? James told everyone you didn't want to come, that you weren't feeling up to a big family event right now. Then you post that photo. People are confused. I took a deep breath. Andrew, I was never invited. James told me it was a family reunion, blood relatives only. I only found out it was your engagement party by accident when someone mentioned it to me in town. The silence on the other end was deafening. That's not possible, Andrew finally said. Everyone was invited with their partners. Mum sent the invitations herself. Check your invitation, I suggested. I saw the one sent to James. It was only addressed to him. I heard rustling papers, then Andrew's sharp intake of breath. You're right. It just says James Preston. But we all assumed. Sophia specifically asked if you were coming and James said you'd declined. A wave of nausea washed over me. He lied to both sides. He told me I wasn't invited and he told you I didn't want to come. But why would he do that? Andrew sounded genuinely bewildered. You'd have to ask him, I said, my voice bitter. Or your mother. James told me she never thought I was good enough for him, that she believed I only married him for his money and connections. Maybe she finally found a way to make her point. Andrew was quiet again, and when he spoke, his voice was different, harder. This isn't right. None of this is right. I'm going to talk to James, get to the bottom of this. Don't bother on my account, I said, surprised by how calm I felt. I think I finally understand where I stand with the Preston family. Not with me, Andrew said firmly. Not with Sophia. Whatever's going on here, it's not right and it's not what we want. After hanging up with Andrew, I listened to a voicemail Catherine had left. Helena, this display of pettiness is exactly why I've always had concerns about your suitability for this family. If you cannot put aside your ego for your brother-in-law's special occasion, perhaps you should reconsider your place in this family altogether. James is devastated by your behaviour. I laughed out loud at that, a harsh, humourless sound that echoed in my empty room. James devastated James, who had lied to me, excluded me, failed to stand up for me. James, who had allowed his mother to treat me like an unwelcome intruder for 5 years. The final message was from Sophia, sent just 30 minutes ago. Helena, I just talked to Andrew. I am horrified by what's happened. This was never what we wanted. I specifically asked Catherine to include you on the invitation. I can't believe James would lie like this. Please call me when you can. And for what it's worth, your skiing photo is gorgeous. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, trying to process the rapid unravelling of the life I'd thought I was living. It felt like the ground beneath me had suddenly given way, revealing that everything I'd believed was built on lies. But strangely, alongside the pain and betrayal, I felt something else: relief. The crushing weight of trying to be good enough, trying to fit in, trying to earn approval from people who would never give it that weight was lifting. The truth, however ugly, was finally out in the open. My phone rang again. James. I let it go to voicemail, then listened. Helena, you've made your point. Now you're just being vindictive. Mum is upset. Andrew and Sophia are confused, and you've turned what should have been a happy family celebration into a dramatic spectacle about you. I'm coming to Breckenridge tomorrow to sort this out in person. This has gone far enough. His voice held no apology, no acknowledgement of his lies, just anger that I had disrupted his carefully constructed narrative. I texted back a single line, "Don't bother coming. I won't be seeing you." Then I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, changed into a simple black dress I'd packed on a whim, and went downstairs to meet my new friends for dinner. Whatever storm was brewing in Aspen, it could wait until tomorrow. Tonight, I would enjoy the freedom of being exactly who I was, without apology or pretense. James was waiting in the lobby when I came down for breakfast the next morning. His hair was dishevelled, his eyes bloodshot, his normally immaculate appearance rumpled from what I guessed was a pre-dawn drive from Aspen. "We need to talk," he said, rising from the leather armchair where he'd been sitting. I glanced around the busy lobby, aware of curious eyes on us. "Not here." We rode the elevator in silence, the tension between us thick enough to cut. Once inside my room, James didn't waste time. "What were you thinking?" he demanded. "Do you have any idea the chaos you've caused Mother is beside herself? Andrew and Sophia are considering cancelling the rest of the weekend events. Even Dad is upset, and you know how he stays out of these things." I crossed my arms. And whose fault is that James who lied to everyone who created this situation in the first place? "I was trying to keep the peace," he shouted, pacing the small room. "You know how Mother feels about you. You know how these family events go. I was trying to protect everyone from an uncomfortable weekend." "Protect everyone or protect yourself?" I asked quietly. "You didn't want to deal with the conflict, so you lied to both sides, hoping no one would find out. That's not protection, James. That's cowardice." His face flushed with anger. "That's not fair." "None of this is fair," I agreed. "It's not fair that your mother has treated me like an outsider for 5 years. It's not fair that you've allowed it. It's not fair that you lied to me, to your brother, to everyone, rather than stand up for your wife." James ran a hand through his hair, his expression shifting from anger to something that might have been shame quickly masked. "Look, I made a mistake," he admitted reluctantly. "I should have handled it differently, but your little Instagram stunt was completely out of line. You embarrassed the entire family just to get back at me." I shook my head, suddenly tired of the whole conversation. "That's what you still don't understand. I didn't post that photo to embarrass anyone or to get revenge. I posted it because I was having a genuinely good time, because I felt happy and free for the first time in years. The fact that you and your mother saw it as an attack says more about you than it does about me." James stared at me as if seeing me clearly for the first time. "What's happened to you? You've changed." "No," I said softly. "I'm finally remembering who I was before I started shrinking myself to fit into your family's box. I'm remembering what it feels like to be valued for who I am, not what family I married into." James sank onto the edge of the bed, looking suddenly defeated. "So what now? You've made your point. Everyone knows you were excluded. Mother's even offered a grudging apology, if you can believe it. Can we move past this now?" I looked at my husband, this man I'd loved so deeply, this man who still didn't understand what had broken between us. It wasn't just this weekend, this party, this lie. It was 5 years of small betrayals, 5 years of choosing his family over me, 5 years of watching me try to earn a place at a table where I'd never truly be welcome. "I don't think so, James," I said gently. "I think we need some time apart." His head snapped up. "What are you talking about?" "Separation over one weekend, not over one weekend, over what this weekend has shown me about our marriage, about your priorities, about how little you're willing to fight for me." "That's not true," he protested. "I love you. I believe that you do in your way," I said. "But love without respect, without loyalty, without partnership, that's not enough for me anymore." James stood up, his expression hardening. "So you're just going to throw away 5 years of marriage because your feelings got hurt? This is exactly why Mother always said you weren't Preston material. When things get difficult, you cut and run instead of working through it. That's not how our family operates." His words should have hurt, but instead they filled me with a strange sense of peace. "You're right. I'm not Preston material. I never was. And that's not a failing on my part, it's a fundamental incompatibility that we've both been ignoring for too long." James stared at me for a long moment, then grabbed his coat. "I'm going back to Aspen to salvage what's left of this weekend. When you're done with this little identity crisis, or whatever this is, call me. We'll figure it out." He left without another word, the door clicking shut behind him with quiet finality. I sat in the sudden silence, waiting for the tears, the regret, the urge to run after him. None came. Instead, I felt a profound sense of clarity. Whatever happened next, reconciliation, separation, divorce, I knew one thing with absolute certainty: I would never again make myself smaller to fit someone else's idea of who I should be. I picked up my phone and texted Marcus, "Still up for showing me those black diamond runs today?" Then I got dressed and headed for the mountain, ready to challenge myself in ways I'd been afraid to for far too long. The months following that weekend in Breckenridge were both the hardest and most liberating of my life. James and I agreed to a 3-month separation. I moved into a small apartment in downtown Denver, taking only what was truly mine, leaving behind the trappings of Preston life I'd accumulated over 5 years. The first weeks were a blur of practical matters, changing addresses, opening new bank accounts, establishing routines that didn't revolve around James's schedule or preferences. Nights were the hardest, the silence of my new place deafening after years of shared space, shared breath, shared life. But slowly, I began to rediscover myself. I redecorated my apartment in bold colours James would have hated. I played music at full volume while editing photos. I ate ice cream for dinner when I felt like it. Small rebellions, perhaps, but each one helped me reclaim pieces of myself I'd surrendered in the name of being a good wife, a suitable Preston. My photography business surprisingly began to flourish. Without the pressure to produce commercial work that would impress the Prestons, I returned to the artistic landscapes that had been my first love. I poured my grief, my anger, my newfound freedom into my images, creating a series called Breaking Open that caught the attention of a small but prestigious gallery in Santa Fe. Andrew and Sophia reached out regularly, making it clear they wanted to maintain a relationship separate from the drama with James and Catherine. Their support meant more than I could express a validation that I wasn't crazy, that what had happened wasn't acceptable. "Mother's never going to change," Andrew told me over coffee one afternoon. "But that doesn't mean you have to accept how she treats you. James should have stood up for you years ago." James and I met for dinner once a month, awkward affairs, where we circled around the fundamental issues without ever quite addressing them. He wanted me to come home to try again, to forgive and forget. I wanted acknowledgement, change, growth. We remained at an impasse. The real surprise came 6 months after our separation, when Catherine asked to meet me for coffee. I almost declined, certain it would be another opportunity for criticism, thinly veiled as concern. But curiosity won out. We met at a neutral location, a quiet cafe halfway between her Cherry Hills mansion and my downtown apartment. She arrived precisely on time, impeccably dressed as always, her expression unreadable. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, as she sat down. No air kisses or false warmth, which I actually appreciated. "I was surprised by your invitation," I admitted. Catherine nodded, a slight tightening around her eyes, the only indication of discomfort. "I've been doing some reflecting at Thomas's insistence, I'll admit. He's quite upset with how things have unfolded." I waited, unwilling to make this easier for her. "I haven't been fair to you," she continued after a moment. "From the beginning, I had certain expectations about who James would marry. Someone from our social circle, someone who understood our world inherently rather than having to learn it. When he chose you instead, I felt threatened, I suppose. Threatened by me. I couldn't hide my surprise. Catherine's smile was thin but not unkind. "You had something I never managed to instill in James, a sense of authenticity, a passion for something beyond status and appearance. He was drawn to that in you, and I feared it would draw him away from the family, from the life we'd planned for him. So you decided to make me feel unwelcome at every turn." "I decided to test you," she corrected, "to see if you were truly committed to James, to our family, or if you would break under pressure. It was unfair and unkind, and I owe you an apology for that." I sat back, stunned by what seemed like genuine contrition from a woman I'd believed incapable of it. "The engagement weekend," I said. "Was that your doing?" Catherine had the grace to look ashamed. "The separate invitation was my idea, yes, but James could have refused to go along with it. should have refused, as Thomas has repeatedly pointed out to me. We talked for nearly 2 hours, clearing the air about years of slights and misunderstandings. Catherine would never be warm or demonstrative, I realised, but there was a forthrightness to her I could respect. By the time we parted, something had shifted between us. Not friendship, certainly, but perhaps the beginning of mutual respect. "Whatever you decide about your marriage," she said, as we prepared to leave, "I want you to know that Thomas and I will respect it, and you will always be welcome at our table. Genuinely welcome if you choose to return." It was more than I'd ever expected from Catherine Preston, but it came too late to save my marriage. Because the truth was, the problem had never really been Catherine. It had been James and his inability to stand in the gap between us to be a husband first and a dutiful son second. A year after that fateful weekend in Breckenridge, James and I finalised our divorce. It was amicable, fair, even kind. We had both realised finally that love without equal respect and genuine partnership wasn't enough to build a life on. I kept my small downtown apartment, but expanded my photography business, travelling frequently for shoots, building a name for myself beyond the Preston shadow. I started dating again cautiously at first, then with growing confidence. Marcus from Breckenridge and I maintained a friendship that occasionally dipped into something more when we were in the same city. 2 years after my separation from James, I met Daniel at a gallery opening featuring my work. He was a professor of environmental science, passionate about his field, secure in himself in a way that made space for me to be fully myself. When he introduced me to his family 6 months into our relationship, his mother hugged me warmly and said, "We've heard so much about you. Daniel says your photography shows how you see beauty where others might miss it." Standing in their modest home, surrounded by people who wanted to know me, not shape me or test me or change me, I felt a gratitude so profound it brought tears to my eyes. Sometimes the most painful rejections are actually protection, steering us away from places we don't belong, toward the spaces and people that will help us flourish. The weekend I wasn't invited to a family celebration became the weekend I found my way back to myself. The exclusion that felt like cruel rejection became the push I needed to stop accepting less than I deserved. I still see the Prestons occasionally. Andrew and Sophia had their first child last year, and they asked me to take the newborn photos. Catherine and I exchange polite emails on birthdays and holidays. James and I run into each other at industry events from time to time, our interactions tinged with nostalgia, but no regret. I am no longer a Preston by name, but I carry with me the hard-won wisdom of those years. I know now that belonging cannot be earned by making yourself smaller. True acceptance comes from those who appreciate you at your fullest, your most authentic, your most unapologetically yourself. That's the greatest gift I received from not being invited to that engagement party. The courage to stop knocking on doors that would never fully open for me, and to walk instead toward the wide-open spaces where I could breathe, grow, and finally truly belong. Have you ever found yourself trying to fit into a space that wasn't designed for you? Have you sacrificed parts of yourself to be accepted by others? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who might need to hear that rejection can sometimes be the greatest protection. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, the people who truly value you will never make you question your worth.